Congratulations to our great fans and supporters of American Sunlight News Podcast. We are so glad that you are back with us again, and if this is your first time, welcome to the 6th edition of our broadcasts. Filing week for offices in Washington state is upon us, starting Monday, the 15th of May, and the drum roll begins as we will soon learn if our candidate, Mark Greene, will get the donations and overall money to be able to continue his campaign for Director of Election in King County, Washington. Mark has successfully been on the ballot for Director of Elections twice in the past, the first time, in 2011, when he took on the Ron Sims-appointed bureaucrat, Cheryl Huff, whose arrogancy and incompetence led to ballots being sent out to some of the most conservative areas of King County at least a week or two late, and probably led to the disenfranchisement of some voters. The second time Mark ran was in 2019, against then one-term incumbent, Julie Wise, when the powers that be in King County held no candidate forums whatsoever. Although there were a few invitations to make very brief speeches, one of them was for 1 minute, or to have the candidates sing a song, believe it or not, without even a chance to speak. Mark, who really needed the publicity no matter how short shrift or kind of undignified, nevertheless ended up turning virtually all of those down, and some because the accommodations simply were not up to par with realistic expectations. Mark's campaign underwent this metaphorical slap in the face even though Mark gave professional insights into how elections should be administered, and pointed out the flaws and malfunctions of the Julie Wise tenure at elections. The Constantine machine in King County and the Seattle Times newspaper, among others, basically gave a signal to their puppets to treat the 2019 Director of Elections election with disdain, and the puppets did exactly that. They paid no attention to Mark's articulately written down ideas about election administrations, or the flaws of the Julie Wise elections department, and instead decided to harp on trivia about Mark's young adult female friend. A perfect bait and switch to distract the voters and swing the elections to Julie Wise. Yet, despite the usual electoral power plays and deceptions by the powers that be, Mark received just shy of 105,000 votes in 2019, the first time he received a six-figure election count in his long, almost half-century career. Even in 2011, Mark was not that far away from 100,000 votes. This year, Mark will have a full platform of being against ranked choice voting, which practically half of the city of Seattle agrees with him on, let alone the rest of King County, which is probably even stronger against it than Seattle, which, after all, went for ranked choice voting barely in last year's City of Seattle measure, but Mark will take it to court as unconstitutional on day one. Mark will also be firmly against online voting as well as compulsory voting, the latter which isn't law yet, we believe, but radicals in the Washington legislature are working towards making it law. Once again, Mark will take anything of that sort, if necessary, to court on day one or whenever it is enacted. We've said this in a past podcast, but it bears repeating, Mark will work towards an all-hand count ballot tabulation system, if elected. If he faces unassailable political or budgetary obstacles in accomplishing that goal, he will, at least, have hand count audits of machine counts of the most significant magnitude ever. Do not put it past the partisan mainstream media to overlook Mark's serious approach to elections again, as leopards don't change spots, after all, but we hope the public at large takes a more vigilant approach in getting past the noise and focusing on the issues, as the great newsman, Tucker Carlson, alluded to recently. Victory is at hand. Strength, honor and nation. One more note before we leave, the late, great baseball pitcher and legend, Satchel Paige, once said, "Don't look back. Someone might be gaining on you." He was right. Now let the games begin.